Welcome to Thru the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier. It is a beautiful time of year. We're in the throes of March Madness, and he's here as always. It's the great Cousin Sal. Not feeling his best today, but he's fighting through it just for us. Sal, how you doing, man? How you holding up?
Just for you, I'm holding up okay. My voice isn't. I'm not my usual Walter Cronkite, the powerful voice. But I said we should go to Vegas. I was excited we went to Vegas. We never should have gone to Vegas because I'm now a shell of myself here on Wednesday.
We had a great time, and shout out to everybody that came out to Las
Yes.
Vegas. Come join us next year when we do the same thing. It was a whole lot of fun. You can tell just by how Sal is sounding right now that that's how much fun we had, and it is the best time to be in Las Vegas. And Sal, thank you so much for joining us, because now we get to play my favorite game. If you weren't here, I wouldn't be able to play this game because I only want to play with you. Let's do some over-under reactions, and let's start with my North Carolina Tar Heels. I say to you, North Carolina basketball was jinxed, dare I say cursed, by members of the national media. Over or under reaction. A lot of people trying to go against my heels. Your thoughts on this?
You were very upset. I'm surprised you didn't get deathly sick after the Tar Heels lost. You took to drinking in Las Vegas, which is unheard of, honestly. But you know what? I'm going to say overreaction. You might get upset with me here.
That's fair.
But I think a not very good team lost to a team that should have beaten them. I mean, the fact that they were favored versus Ole Miss was the surprising element. And weren't they like 12 for 25 in layups against Ole Miss like that? Actually, that does seem like a curse or a hex was put on them. If you can't make layups, that is something you can normally do. But what do you think? Do you think they were jinxed? I'm going to say overreaction. What do you think?
Seth Davis trying to go after Ramses, bring the Ram on set. That was a bridge too far for me, especially knowing that he's a Duke guy. That's the reason I said that. But you're right. It's a bad team. That was 11 of 27 on layup attempts, and that's
what they
not
were.
good enough. Not good enough.
What should you be? You should be about 15 for 27, right? On layups?
Like, I mean, at least give me, somewhere up above 15, maybe like 18, 19 range, somewhere in there.
Okay. All right. Next year.
Yeah, next year they'll see what they can do. Let's talk about a team that's still in the tournament this year. Duke and the character, specifically Timothy Ratliff, in the season of White Lotus, will be eliminated on White Lotus before Duke will be eliminated in the tournament. Over or under reaction, Sal? What do you think?
Who gets eliminated first, Timothy Ratliff or Duke? This is close. So if you have Duke going to the Final Four, that means Timothy Ratliff would have to lose his life in the next 2 episodes, the character.
Right.
I think he ends up shooting his wife because of the whole UNC thing and because of her super annoying accent. But I don't think he gets done. Yes, in the missed layups. But no, I think he survives himself. I say Duke goes out first, so then this is a overreaction.
Okay, I like that call there. Next up, Race to 10. Again, if you came to Las Vegas and you hung out with us at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club, you would have had a great time. You would have joined us in the Race to 10. And I say to you, Sal, Race to 10 is officially the most fun bet in all of sports. Over or under reaction. I know that Kenny Mayne would say this is a proper reaction.
He loved it. We won Kenny Mayne over. He was there with us. He was recording it. I am going to say it's an underreaction. I don't bet a lot, so maybe there are other options out there. No, this is the most fun thing. There's no question about it. We did it twice at the Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club. We won both. The first one was outstanding. UCLA, Utah State. We bet UCLA for everyone in the room to score 10 points before Utah State. It was 8-8, Tate. And from that point, each team, I think, had 3 possessions. It was wild. And UCLA eventually scored on a dunk, and the whole place went bananas. And I handed out $50, $10 bills. It was really something. Yeah, we have B-roll of it here. Look at this.
Yeah,
look how much fun.
Oh, man. And that game was terrible otherwise. The Race to 10 was immaculate, and that's why the Race to 10 is so powerful, because it doesn't matter about the game. It's about the Race to 10. It's so much fun. Next up, Sal, all 4 top 1 seeds will make the Final Four after all. This is what Jay Billis predicted. He said all 4 1 seeds will make the Final Four. First time since the only time in 2008. Is that an over or under reaction?
Yeah, Jay Billis had this. Jay Williams had it. Jay and Silent Bob. I don't know. All the Jays had it, I think. You could get about 8-1 still on if you think the all 4 1 seeds will make the Final Four. I don't like it. I'm sticking with my 4. I have 2 1s in Houston and Duke. I have a 2 with Michigan State. And I have the Crab 5 Maryland Terps as a 4 seed. What do you think about this, Chalky McChalkerstein? Do you think it's going to hold out?
I think it's very chalk, but I like our bet with the 2-1 seeds, and I think you're right. I
Okay.
do think it's going to. I personally think it's going to be Duke and Florida, but Duke and Houston. Houston looks great right now. I would say that Duke and Houston look like the two best 1 seeds right now. So I think you're in the right camp. Maybe we can bump it up and go 3-1 seeds if it's not
You
just
and I picked it. Yes, before the tournament, we picked exactly 2 number 1 seeds would make the final 4, and we're in good shape. You want all 4 to be intact at this point.
right.
If your end goal is 2, yeah.
And that's why a lot of people complaining about the Sweet 16. We got great games ahead. It's going to be an amazing Sweet 16. A lot of good matchups. But we're talking about stars. So I say to you, Sal, we lost a big one. Amir Khan is the breakout star of this year's NCAA tournament. Over or under reaction?
I'm going to say overreaction. I really don't care about this kid. I really don't. But the fact that he has an NIL deal, I was thinking about this. It must have some of the older players blood boiling, right? I
right.
think about all the blood, sweat, and tears that Patrick Ewing put in, and Chris Webber and Bobby Hurley and Chris Mullins. And this schlub gets a 7-figure deal for carrying a speaker. I mean, come on. Someone please interview Kareem about this. Like Lou Alcindor didn't have 2 nickels to rub together back in his college days, but this guy carries a speaker and gets 100 grand plus.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I want to interview the other managers that he basically got to stop, wiping up the sweat, cleaning
Right.
like he basically became a celebrity while the other managers had to pick up his slack. So I'm sure that they had some thoughts on this. So
You know what this is like? This is like, I don't mean to get off track, but
of
Guillermo
course.
of Jimmy Kimmel Live was a
Oh,
security
wow.
guard and fell asleep in our announcer Dickie's car because Dickie would leave his car open. Instead of getting fired like he would under any other circumstances, Jimmy promoted him to sidekick. And so the other security
Right.
guards, there's still that resentment.
And they're still trying to get drunk in someone's car and see if they can, fell their
That's
way out
right.
to be the
Yeah.
sidekick. So
He's the Amir Khan.
you
Yeah.
set a bad precedent. Maybe they start carrying some speakers into the show and see what happens. That would be good. Next up, Sal, Wyatt Hendrickson beating Gable Stevenson. Stevenson was the best college sports moment last weekend. Obviously, this is wrestling. Over or under reaction?
It was a pretty cool moment, unless you're Gable Stevenson, who's a friend of the podcast, not this podcast, but my, Against All Odds pie. I feel bad for Gable. He was probably a 7-1 favorite somewhere in there. They called it the biggest upset in college wrestling history. Hopefully he gets some UFC deal and dominates there. But yes, next to the 130-pound wrestling champ who was hugged his much taller volleyball girlfriend, this was tops. And Amir Khan, of course. That was a top moment in college.
Right.
But,
All that together. That was all college sports was about last weekend. Last one. This is NBA. We have to plug the NBA, of course. And I said to you, Sal, Steph Curry's tunnel shot was the NBA's biggest on-court moment of the year. And now we just found out that it was fake. Over or under reaction. Should we feel upset about this? Should we feel deceived by this moment?
No, I'm not upset. And I do think it was the biggest on-court moment. So I'm going to say underreaction. And that's very sad for the NBA. I don't know if anyone on this channel still watches the NBA, but I think it's very sad that Steph Curry's tunnel shot was the biggest. And then I was thinking about this, Tate, in typical NBA fashion, it took 3 days to review before we saw the shot hit the net rather than went through it. We needed 3 days. Why so long to review that play? I don't get it.
No. And even it doesn't matter what actually happened because every single time they just put out the report saying, hey, we missed that call or, they missed
Yes,
that
that's
shot.
true.
Our bad, but they don't go back and change anything. You're just like, okay, well, you just let us know that you screwed up. Thanks a lot. You're not going to do anything about it. And we move on, I guess. So there you have it. The Steph Curry
same thing.
magic. Not so magical, kind of like a Wizard of Oz moment a little bit here. But, there is just a man behind the curtain. His name is Steph Curry. Let's call up another man, the Riverboat captain. Let's have some fun. Let's do some prop culture. And we got a question here, Sal, a fun one in the midst of March Madness. Which current college basketball coach would you least want to sit next to on an airplane after a loss? We got the odds right here. Dan Hurley, the duality of Dan Hurley, -310. We got Kim Mulkey, 5-1. We got Mick Cronin, 10-1. He was not happy about his Allegiant flight. Bruce Pearl, 25-1. The field at even odds. What say you, Sal? Who do you not want to sit next to?
Oh, man, much like the NCAA tournament, I'm going chalk here. Dan Hurley, -310. I mean, I can't even imagine sitting next to him. I said I want trail mix, not roasted peanuts. I don't know what we'd have to do. Like, even when he's calm, he's chewing his gum like a hippopotamus. You ever see footage of him chewing gum?
Oh, yeah.
Like he has a
Terrorizing that
vendetta
piece of gum,
against St. John's and Hubba Bubba. So I don't know what's going on. I think I'd have to shoot him with a tranquilizer gun while we were taxing. That's the only way this would work. But yeah, that's my pick. Dan Hurley, -310.
I think Dan Hurley is a great pick, and I understand why he is the heavy favorite, especially if you saw some of the antics from this past weekend. He did great in the post-game speech talking about his seniors, but then there was a leaked video that came out that was not so great. Again, the duality of Dan Hurley. I'm going to go with Rick Pitino, though. I do feel like Rick Pitino is a vampire or some sort of like super being that we don't really quite understand, and I feel like after a loss, sitting next to him on a plane, he would be very quiet, so quiet that it would get scary, so quiet that you would kind of feel your skin crawl a little bit, and then I don't know if you'd survive that plane. I think he would take it out on you. So, Rick Pitino, I would take him at even odds, and that's just what he does as the Godfather. And now I turn it over to you, Sal. Even though you're not feeling so great, you still want to set some lines for us.
Let's do it. I've never, health has nothing to do with setting lines as far as I'm concerned. How about this? Mookie Betts somehow lost all this weight. He can't keep a meal down for the last 3 weeks. His opening day weight over under 139.5 pounds.
Oh, I'm going to go over, I hope, right?
I hope
feel
so
like
too.
I think if it's under, Sal, we're going to be in some real trouble, especially, the LA Dodgers fans out here, the diehard. So I would have to assume it's going to be over. But, Bryce Young, I need an over there too. So I feel like there's a lot of people in that range that we need to get these guys to eat a little bit more. So I like the over.
I agree.
I help them with that, by the way, if they need some help.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, the Ozempic epidemic is flying high here in LA if Mookie Betts is down to 140. Yeah, he's still going fifth in most fantasy drafts, which is interesting. All right, how about this, Tate? The Yankees, your Yankees, will have a new manager by over under July 4th.
I'm going to say under. I think it happens sooner rather than later.
Wow.
Yeah, I just, for whatever reason, the Soto thing, going to the Mets, I think that was a tough move. Last year felt like the year if they were going to do it to get a win, but the Dodgers were just better at their own game, and I think people want new blood. They want to hear a new voice in that locker room, and, we're in finger-pointing territory, and I think this year, and quickly, it starts getting pointed at Coach Boone, unfortunately.
He got an extension, which is usually the kiss of death as soon as a coach or a manager gets an extension, but I think July 4th might be a little early. They'd have to be like 30 and 50 for him to. I just don't see it. All right, how about this? There will be a bonus 10th episode of Celtic City minus 333. I don't know where they came up with those numbers for Celtic City. 10th bonus episode. What do you think, Tate? Is it happening?
I think it's got to happen. I like the odds there. I will say I think that the bonus episode should just be the Red Auerbach Pistol Pete video where he's just sitting there marveling at Pistol Pete dribble. That should just be the 10th episode. And Bill reacting to that video. You know what I mean? It's just like Bill watching it on his iPad like he's Michael Jordan, laughing and being like, this is awesome. Go back to the video. That'd be a great 10th episode.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe featuring Brian Scalabrine taking on old men in Rucker Park. That could be its own episode. Maybe Bill Simmons reading Perk's tweets, not something like that. Carry on, young man. LeBron's the best. I don't even know what Perk says anymore.
I like Perk tweets. New segment there. You just read his tweets. That would be good. Sal, thank you for setting the lines. That was a lot of fun. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do some line look aheads and some track to the futures in the NCAA tournament. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thru the Ringer. We're here with Cousin Sal, and we got basketball ahead. We are officially in the Sweet 16. This is the best of time. Let's do our first line look ahead. We're going to head to the South region, Sal, and again, these games are all happening starting on Thursday and Friday, a great slate. But we're looking in the South region. Is there a prop bet, a player bet, something that you have highlighted that you want to take in this round, Sal?
There is. There is. I mean, we went over this in rehearsal. You know how this goes. No, Michigan State, I think, is a little rich, that 3.5 against Ole Miss. I know you don't want to talk about Ole Miss. You'd rather forget that they even existed, but
they're good.
I'm going to go player prop. Jalen Murray, 10+ points, senior from the Bronx, averages 10.5 a game. He's done this 10 or more in 4 of his last 5. He's had double-digit games in 20 games this year, shooting a lot more lately, averaging around 11 shots. He gets to the free throw line 3 to 4 times a game. Only 7 points against the Tar Heels. Tate, he didn't need to score that much. You guys were missing so many layups. But this Thursday, Jalen Murray, 10 or more.
Yeah, and I like that call with Murray. Ole Miss is playing good basketball right now, and if you believe in this Ole Miss team, it might be worth taking a swing. Money line plus 146. Chris Beard, Tom Izzo, they faced each other back in 2019 in the Final Four. Chris Beard got the best of him, especially on the defensive end. I feel like a similar thing could happen again. Matt Moody was a guy that had a big game for Texas Tech. Sean Padula could be that guy for Ole Miss. So circle that game as like an upset potential. Everybody loves Izzo. Everybody's high on the Spartans, but Ole Miss, they might shock you. They're playing some good basketball. Let's go to the West region. region. The next line look ahead here. What do you like in the West? Is there a bet that is sticking out to you, Sal? And like you said, we already rehearsed this, so I already know.
Yeah, last week we went over our final four picks. I had Maryland at plus 750, and I think even at plus 500, they're a good value in the West. My Crab 5, I've been high on them for the last few weeks. I have them going to the final four. Did Derek Queen travel? You damn right he did. He absolutely did. But you know what? The good ones get lucky, and I think this is something we're going to remember. They're going to upset Florida, then they're going to beat Arkansas, who will have recorded an upset over Texas Tech, beating two SEC teams. Give me Maryland to win the region at plus 500.
Yeah, and if you believe in Maryland to win the region, you might as well take Maryland to beat Florida at plus 240. Florida looked a little shell-shocked against UConn, the defending champs, and I do think Maryland is a team that is tough. If they stay out of foul trouble, if Derek Queen continues to play at the level he's been playing, I really like that one, and I really like the Crab 5, and I like their story as well. So good call there, Sal. Let's go to the East region. This is obviously Duke zone, Duke territory. They are terrorizing everybody in their path. Is there a bet that you like, a prop that you like in this region?
I know you hate it. You hate the Duke talk, but I'm liking them adjusted minus 15.5 over Arizona. You get plus 235 for them. They are a complete team. They won by 34. They won their second game by 33. They had a stretch of 7 in a row this year, Tate, where they won by 16 or more, and they already beat them by 14 in November. So slow start for Arizona. Remember, they were losing like 20-4 to Oregon. They try that crap against Duke, they're going to get slapped around. I think they do anyway. 84-65 final. Lay the 15.5 adjusted.
Yeah, the more that people talk about Caleb Love and a redemption game, I think the worse it is for Arizona.
Yeah.
This is a bad matchup, a bad draw. Even if Cooper Flagg and Knipple aren't scoring, they can still win and dominate a game. So if I were a sharp, I would go look at Duke plus 220 to win the national championship, and I would bet it now before those odds continue to trend down. Might as well go ahead and hit it because they already looked the part, and if you've been watching, you can tell that. Let's go flip down to the Midwest region. This is Houston's territory, but it's interesting, Sal. They're playing in Indianapolis, and you got Purdue that they're playing against, who obviously is in West Lafayette, so they get kind of a home game in the Sweet 16. Is there a prop that you like in this region?
Yeah, they've been the lucky team so far, right? Purdue, I mean, having to face McNeese State, they had a couple cupcakes to get to the Sweet 16, but I am going to take Houston to win the region. I had them, obviously. They're my team to win the whole thing. You get them at minus 115 now to win this Midwest region. They beat a gutty Gonzaga team, knocking them down from, what was it, 13 straight Sweet 16? I don't know what it was for
Nine
Gonzaga.
straight, yeah.
Nine straight, that's right.
Now Houston's gone to 6 straight Sweet 16s.
Yeah, so there we go. I think they take care of Painter's Purdue squad and the winner of Tennessee, Kentucky after those two beat up on each other. LJ Cryer has been insane, right? What do you have, 30 the last game? Give me the Cougars to make the Final Four. Kelvin Sampson comes in under the radar, which doesn't seem possible for a 1 seed, but it kind of is what's going on here.
And the last time that Houston went to the Final Four under Kelvin Sampson, that was 2021. They played all those games in Indianapolis. It was during COVID. So they have actually gone to a Final Four in that building they're going to be playing in. So there is some sort of connective tissue there. He was the coach at Indiana, obviously. So he's coached against Purdue back in the Big Ten days, Kelvin Sampson has. So there's some familiar territory there. And I do like Houston to win that region. I think they're playing the best basketball right now. And if they shoot the ball from deep like they've been shooting, they're pretty much unstoppable. There is another tournament going on. In fact, there's 2 tournaments that will be happening. There's the Crown on Fox, but we got the NIT as well. Wednesday, Sal, what's your NIT play of the day?
Give me the UAB Blazers here, right? They're going against the UC Irvine Anteaters. I'm getting 5.5 points. Yaxel Lendeborg, he's been solid, over 20 points against Santa Clara the other day. They are, as a team, they're 5th in 3-point percentage versus UC Irvine, who's 282nd, Tate, defending the 3. Blazers are 4-1 against the spread in the last 5. Give me UAB plus 5.5 here.
Yeah, Yaxel Lindenborg is moving up the Ringer draft board. So shout out to anybody that watches basketball through the lens of just draft talk. You should go watch the NIT game there, the UAB UC Irvine game. Last line look ahead, Sal, before we let you go rest up. We got opening day Mets at Astros. What do you like here?
Well, you think Soto's an FU to the Yankees. How about this Clay Holmes? He was a reliever. They didn't know what to do with him. The Yankees did. I think this would be hilarious. He's now coming. He's the Mets ace. He's going to get the ball to start things off. Incredible spring, 0.93 ERA, 0.78 whip, 23 strikeouts. Mets got to Framber Valdez. That's who they're facing. They got him last year. They got 3 runs in 4+ innings. I think they win again. this time in Houston, opening day. Let's go, Mets. One win, and then 161 away from a perfect season.
I love it. An opening day statement from the New York Mets. We'd love to see that. And that's exactly the last thing you need to talk about on this show. Sal, where can we find all your other amazing work? And then we'll let you go rest up for the rest of the day.
Against All Odds on the Ringer Podcast Network and Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend on Friday morning. Mad Dog Russo, if you want more baseball talk, he's going to be joining us.
I love it. Sal, you're the best. Thanks so much for being a trooper. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Thru the Ringer. As promised before the break, we are bringing on the Ringer's very own Danny Kelly to make sense of the 2025 NFL Draft. DK, good to see you, man. How you holding up? This is the perfect time. Mock draft, big board season. I know you love this.
Yeah, it's hectic. We're, I think, about 1 month from the draft, either today or yesterday officially. So that's kind of crazy. It's really, we're on the stretch run now, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions, and the first question is probably an easy question, the one that everybody, a casual fan, they'd go up to you, they say, hey, Danny Kelly knows ball. He knows what's going to happen in this NFL draft. Who is the number one pick on your big board? And now the big board's different than the mock draft, right? Because the teams are tailored there. But your big board, who do you think is the number one guy in this draft?
I have Penn State's edge rusher Abdul Carter at number one.
Ooh,
and I mean, it's close with a couple of guys up there. I think there's a few blue chip players in this class. But his combination of, explosiveness, flexibility, bend, burst, and overall just his trajectory of where he's going as a pass rusher. I think he has, double-digit sack potential in the NFL. He's that good. He's that explosive. And we saw kind of down the stretch how he can take over games. So he's my number one player. I think whoever gets him, and it honestly could be three or four now, depending on where the quarterbacks go. Whichever team gets him is going to be very, very lucky.
And this is a guy at Penn State. He started as a freshman. He had 6 starts in 13 games, and he is someone that showed a lot of flash, a lot of firepower, and every single one of these teams wants someone who can rush off the edge. That's the reason why Von Miller was so coveted in free agency, guys that can close games for you. That is what Abdul Carter is. So is he kind of like in his own tier as an edge pass rusher in this draft?
Yeah, definitely. I have him kind of in his own tier at the top. Again, it's first step explosiveness. He is elite there. I think he could still stand to put on like a little bit of weight, maybe, so he's more of a 3-down player, get him going against the run. Because he started out his career as an off-ball linebacker, and then he switched to pass rusher during his career. So he's definitely explosive, bendy. He can finish. And I think like if he puts on a little bit more weight, a little bit more muscle, he gets in an NFL weight room. Not that Penn State's weight room is shabby, because they're, I think, pumping out some of the best athletes in the country every year. But yeah, I mean, I think he has the potential to be one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, like, period. So really like him. I think he's head and shoulders above anybody else at the edge spot here.
And it's Micah Parsons. I mean, that seems like the comp that I would go to in my brain, especially with the linebacker there being able to drop back in coverage. I mean, is that fair to say, or is that
same number in college too?
A lot of similarities.
I comped him to Brian Burns, I think, because he's a little slimmer. He's got the body type where he's not quite filled out like Parsons is. I think Parsons is just built a little bit more muscle, more thickness to him. Carter could probably get there, but right now I comped him to Burns just because, again, the body type and the flexibility, the bend, the agility to get low, dip under blocks, stay on his feet. He has just that incredible body control that I saw with Burns coming out. So, but I mean, obviously, Brian Burns, one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. So that's high praise.
Yeah, a guy who has a nickname, Spider-Man, because of how nasty he is as a defensive player. Let's talk about the number 2 guy on your big board, Travis Hunter. This is fascinating. Everybody loves a two-way guy that can play offense and defense. It's a throwback. He is one of those guys. What is the ceiling on someone that is going to kind of share his time, and do you like him more as a receiver? I've seen people rate him as the number 1 guy as a receiver, and then obviously as a corner. So, like, where do you kind of lead? Which one, or do you like both?
I think the hard part about him and what makes him so good is I could honestly see him becoming an elite player, a Pro Bowl player at either spot. As a receiver, really good body control, really good hands, attacks the football in the air. He's still developing as a route runner, but he has just so much natural athletic talent that I think just the sky is the limit with what he can do as a route runner. And what I've heard is he mostly was in practice meetings for corners. He was mostly in defensive meetings during his college career. So he's still like not even, developed to the point where you'd expect him to be a really high level route runner. And then, so I think he could come in and be a big time playmaker at receiver if that's what a team wants him to do. I'm starting to lean because I started out the draft season thinking he's going to be a corner and he'll moonlight as a receiver. I think that's like what makes the most sense. I don't know if I've ever heard of a cornerback that kind of moonlights on defense. I don't really know how that would work logistically. But I think he's good enough to be a receiver full time and then also play defense. As for cornerback, I mean, he's instinctive in coverage, tons of ball skills. He plays, corner like he's a receiver. He has incredible athleticism, good length. He's a fiery playmaker. So he ticks like all the boxes you're looking for at corner as well. So I honestly don't know what to do with him. I think it's going to be fascinating to see where teams put him and if he ends up playing full time on both sides. I think like that'd probably be. I would be a little surprised if teams play him full time on both sides of the football. But I think at the very least he's going to moonlight on one side of the football. I started out the draft season thinking he would moonlight at receiver. And I'm starting to believe more and more as this kind of goes along that he might moonlight as a corner and just play full-time receiver. So again, I can't wait to see what happens with this guy.
It's kind of like the defensive, like special packages, like a nickel package where he goes in as nickel, and that's like what you would see on the offensive side, but it's on the defensive side. And you're like, we need to force a turnover. Let's get him in the game, see if he can make something happen. We can blitz him. We can drop him back. He's got good ball skills. He can kind of hover and play where he wants to play in space. He can tackle if he needs to. I like that. I like that it's kind of like a defensive weapon. That's pretty cool.
I mean, that's exactly kind of what I'm starting to picture. And I guess maybe just since it's not common or it's never really happened, I don't know exactly how it work. And then I think you still have to answer the questions like during practice, is he at like in practice where they're in meetings, is he with the receivers or the corners? Does he have to stay after practice and work with the cornerback coach to figure out all the plays? Like, I think there's just still logistical issues with playing on both sides of the football that he's going to have to figure out. But I mean, this is what he's done all his career. He did it in college at a high level. He's the Heisman winner. I mean, at this point, I'm open to whatever. Like, I think he can do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, and he seems like a very bright guy, so I don't think he would have a problem staying late and doing whatever he needed to do, especially if it's something unique that we've never seen before. I feel like he's the type of guy that would like to lean into that, make it part of his brand, make it part of his calling card. Let's
100%.
talk about let's talk about another Heisman candidate, Ashton Jeanty at Boise State. He has his own brand and calling card, and that's standing in the backfield like he's Mike Myers, which is fascinating. You like him as your third on the big board. You say he's a creator at the highest level. What should we expect from Jeanty? Because he is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he is a tackle breaker of the highest level. Like his contact balance, his agility. I say he's got like gyroscopic balance. It's like he'll take a hit, bounce off of it, and his upper body just stays completely still. It's like it's wild how he's able to absorb contact on his lower half and still stay up and still keep his feet churning. He had, I think he set the record for broken tackles or missed tackles for us, according to PFF, in terms of their all-time tracking. And so he's, again, like one of the all-time best college running backs in terms of breaking tackles, yards after the catch, yards after contact and yards after the catch. He's good in the receiving game. He's a 3-down back. He's good as a pass protector. I think he's the type of running back where he comes in immediately, coaches trust him in every situation, and he's a big play creator. You run out of things to say about him because it's like, how much more can you say? He's an awesome running back who breaks tons of tackles, creates explosive plays, is good in the passing game, and is trustworthy. So, yeah, I think he's going to be an immediate contributor and like a star pretty much right away wherever he lands.
Especially when we just saw a season where Saquon Barkley basically got the Eagles to be in position to then go win the Super Bowl. They didn't really need him in the Super Bowl game, but he's the reason they got there in the first place. So Jeanty's one of those guys. I watch all the Wazoo football games, and I was going into the Boise State game. I'm like, this guy has to be overrated. There's no way he's as good as expected. And 4 minutes into the game, he probably broke 10 tackles already and had 14 points. And I'm like, this guy exceeds expectations. I think he's a really great player. I think he's a very unique player. I love where you have him on the big board. Next up, we're going receiver. We're going to Arizona. McMillan, this is a guy that we have talked about for a couple years. He's finally in the draft. What do you like about him, and do you think he's a number one guy for a team needing one? Because there's a lot of teams that need a number one receiver.
I think he has the potential to develop into a true number one receiver at the NFL level. I think right now he's probably projects as like a really good number two. And so I've come to him every time I look at him, every time I watch him play, I'm like, that looks like T. Higgins. Just the way he
Which is a 1B, right? You know,
right.
it's not a 2, it's a 1A, 1B. I like Jamar Chase standing up for him and just being like, this guy's a number one receiver, because he is. I mean, when you watch, you're like, that guy's not a number 2.
I think also just the way that the NFL is going, the way that the league plays, having two really good receivers is almost necessary. To be an elite offense, you have to have two guys who can make plays, who can come through in the clutch in key situations.
Peyton Manning, right? He taught us that. I mean, Marvin Harris and Reggie Wayne, right? It's nice to have two.
I mean, it's really hard to have an elite offense when you don't have at least two big time receivers. So I think people will quibble over whether he's like a prototypical number one, because he doesn't have the explosiveness that you see from like a Jamar Chase. But body control, really good hands, goes up and attacks the football. He's really trustworthy when in the contested catch situations where like the ball is up in the air, he wins at that situation. He's really tough and strong and brave over the middle of the field in terms of like catching a ball, knowing he's going to take a big hit. He adds some run after the catch ability. Again, it's like I kind of run out of things to say about him. I just think he's an all around player. The only thing he's really lacking, the only reason I think there's some people that aren't quite as high on him as I am, is that he doesn't have that extra gear to create big plays down the field that you see from like a DK Metcalf or whoever. So to me, like T. Higgins is a good example. I think Puka Nacua is another guy that I saw when I was watching him. He's not quite as big as Puka, but he's a little bit bigger than Puka, but stylistically they're same, where you're just trusting them over the middle of the field. You're trusting them in the red zone, and they're just big time playmakers, smooth, athletic, just easy movement skills. So I think he has a really high floor and a really high ceiling at the NFL level.
Yeah, lowest drop rate among Power 5 receivers with at least 100 targets. That was back in 2023. Again, all these nuggets, all these facts are in the Ringer NFL Draft Guide. You got to go read it. Danny Kelly does a really good job. Now that was the big board. Now let's talk mock draft. A little bit different. This is team specific. Who's actually going to make the picks? And of course, we got to talk about the quarterbacks. That is the conversation. Cam Ward, former Wazoo quarterback, shout out last year, obviously at Miami, did a great job there. He is projected to be the number one pick. But in your mock draft, you have Cam Ward going to number 2 to Cleveland, so he would not end up being the number 1 pick. Why do you think that's going to happen? And do you like the fit with Cam Ward going to Cleveland? Because he is he is the opposite of Deshaun Watson. He's a whole lot of fun and a very likable guy, and I think that would be nice for Cleveland. But how did you get there, and why do you think he's not going to go number 1?
Well, I think, the problem with mock drafts is like I'm presenting scenarios. I don't necessarily think he's going to go number 2. Now, I would say over the last week or so, he has become sort of solidified as the presumptive number 1 pick. Like basically all signs point to Tennessee taking him number 1. So, again, this is scenario building. I think if I was going to make it right now today, I'd say Cam Ward goes number 1 to the Titans, and I think Shedeur Sanders goes number 2 to the Browns. I think. And again, like we're a month away. Things could change, and we could hear more stuff coming out of these two teams. But the Titans, what they did in free agency, everything you're hearing about what they felt with Cam Ward at the combine in terms of his how much he impressed them in interviews and how much he impressed them with his confidence and basically what he's able to do on the board. It just looks like the Titans are kind of zeroed in on Cam Ward. So I think right now it would be a big upset if he wasn't the number 1 pick overall. And then number 2 is where you really start to figure out, like, what are the Browns going to do? Obviously, the Deshaun Watson situation hanging over their head. Don't exactly know how that's all going to play out. But they are in a position right now to get a quarterback who, in theory, in Sanders, fits their offense, what they want to do on offense. You're going to a team with a good coach, some good weapons on offense, not necessarily elite weapons, but like for the number 2 overall pick, he's still going to go there and have Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, some guys.
They kind of just need a professional quarterback, right?
100%.
Like if there's any sort of pitch on Shedeur Sanders, it's like he's a pro quarterback. Like he's going to go there, he's going to do the job, he's going to put the ball where you want him to put the ball, he's going to be able to make the throws you want him to make, he's going to play within the game, he can manage a game, he knows how a game can flow back and forth. Like totally, it's kind of the perfect setting for Shedeur.
Yeah, and I think when I watch him, I'm like, he's a ball distributor. Exactly kind of what you laid out. He just gets the ball to his playmakers and lets them do, the dirty work. I think in an offense led by Kevin Stefanski, who, again, like he's a 2-time Coach of the Year winner. This is a good coach. I think just this team and what they did, the risk they took on Deshaun Watson really backfired. It just did not go well in any aspect. And now they're dealing with the fallout from that. But I think that Kevin Stefanski's still a really good coach, can still coach a good offense. And I think he could design a system that Shedeur Sanders is, maybe if he's not a star, he's at least a quality point guard type of quarterback that's able to kind of like distribute the football and just run this offense like it's supposed to be run. Because I think they changed their offense completely to try and fit it to what Deshaun Watson does well, and that didn't work. So now they kind of, I think, are back to square one. So again, I think, a lot of things could change, but right now, if I had to choose, I think it goes Cam 1 and Shedeur 2.
Yeah, I think that's we're all trying to talk around and talk ourselves into certain situations, but at the end of the day, these teams need quarterbacks, and both those teams are going to be intrigued by their options. And I think Shedeur also sells tickets. You get prime, not
you get excited.
Yeah, right. It's like Cleveland's done that before with Johnny, right? I mean, they went with Manziel. They tried to sell tickets before with this quarterback choice. So they've been trying to find that quarterback for a long time. I think it's a good pick. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk some hidden gems in the draft and some sneaky blue chip players that Danny Kelly has been able to highlight for us. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Thru the Ringer. We're here with Danny Kelly. We're hanging out. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the 2025 NFL Draft. And all fair, we were talking about this, Danny. There's a lot that changes. Everything is fluid. Can we just put that kind of notice on the screen right now with the draft conversations, right? There's a lot of stuff that changes, within 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour windows. So, how do you keep up with all the nonsense?
Well, I think the hard part is knowing what like information is out there is purposely put out there as a smokescreen to, change the opinions of teams, or trying to, teams are out here, you've got guys on coaching staffs or in scouting departments whose job is to literally read mock drafts and try and figure out where people are projecting players to go. Obviously they're not basing all their information on mock drafts, but I think it's a good example of teams are out here trying to figure out exactly where they have to go to get a certain player. Do they have to trade up to get a guy? Do they have to, or can they maybe wait and get him in the second round? So there's just a ton of information out there, and sifting through it and trying to figure out what's real and what's not that's the hard part. And again, like you said, everything changes within a day or two, and then the day before the draft, I think you're going to have to throw out every mock draft you ever did, because everything is going to be different the day before the real draft as well.
Right, and there are names that get hot, and there are names that kind of get circulated and spread around, and then all of a sudden you see names start moving up boards, you see names start falling down boards. A name that you like is kind of a sneaky name that maybe people aren't talking about as enough right now. Tyler Warren. Tell us why we need to know his name.
Well, he's just a throwback tight end. He does it all from blocking.
The Mackey Award, right? If you watch college football.
Yeah, incredibly productive. So he had 104 catches for over 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Plus, he ran the ball 26 times for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's running the football like he's Taysom Hill. I don't think he's Taysom
Shanahan has to love this guy. He just he's this is my perfect kind of player.
100%. I think everybody in the Shanahan McVay tree is just going to be looking at this guy and thinking about what they can do with him in their offense. There was one play, I believe it was against USC this last year, where the Penn State had a kind of weird formation. Tyler Warren ended up snapping the football like he's the center, running downfield and catching a touchdown, mossing a guy in the end zone. So that kind of just gives you an idea of who he is as a player, just old school football player. He's 6'6", 260, got tons of size, run after the catch ability, really strong hands. He has tons and tons of combat catches on his tape where he's just going up over a guy and taking it away from him, essentially. Former high school quarterback. So he's just got a really intriguing skill set to be utilized, kind of like a Swiss Army knife guy all over the formation, all over the offense. And, I think the important thing is he's obviously a good receiver. The numbers paint that out, but he's also good as a blocker. So you don't have to take him off the field when you're trying to run the football. He's good where he gets out in space and blocks on screens and things like that. He's just a useful player.
Yeah, he's giving me Ronnie Bass Sunshine vibes from Remember the Titans. If he were maybe 4 inches taller and a tight end. Let's talk RB2. We talked about Ashton Jeanty. He's your RB1 on the board. Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, the national champion, versus my North Carolina Tar Heel, Omarion Hampton.
Yeah.
Both these guys are very talented. I think they have, they do different things. But as far as on your board, who do you like between these two guys? And don't worry, you don't have to change your opinion just because I'm asking.
I'm purposefully and intentionally, and I'm going to continue to do this. I have them right next to each other because I love them both.
Yes.
I have Travion Henderson one spot above, but it's really choose which type of running back you want. Travion Henderson, much more of a slashing, explosive, big play back who can also be factor in the pass game really well, because he's good at pass pro, good with the balls in his hands and screenplays and things like that. Can catch the football, so he's going to be. And I've kind of used this comp. Obviously, this is like the high end comp for both of these guys, but the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs combination in the Lions offense is kind of like how these two guys fit together, and how you could picture what they'll be in an NFL offense. Hampton is a high volume tackle breaker, physicality, brings that edge to an offense, brings the intensity to the offense. He's going to run through your face, that type of running back. And then Trayvon Henderson, much more of like a slasher, explosive, big play guy, where his speed is really, the defense can really feel his speed and has to account for that. So it just kind of depends on what you want. I think Hampton is a much more complete back, but Henderson has that explosive play ability. So, pick what you want. I have them right next to each other on purpose.
Yeah, it's thunder and lightning. And if you could get both those guys, that would be incredible. That would be smart for one team to put both those guys in a backfield and see what happens and get them on rookie contracts. Let's talk defensive tweeners in this year's draft. Now, it feels like everything gets hyper specialized when it comes to positions and needs for teams, especially when you're a team that's smart enough to kind of know exactly what you need. And these tweeners can fit what you need for some of these decisions and some of these picks, right?
Yeah, so I think tweener is in the past has been looked at like a pejorative term. It's not necessarily a good thing. Right. You're like somewhere in between two positions. You don't really know what to do with the guy. But I think with the way that defenses are going these days, where more and more you have players that can do it all in terms of drop back, rush the passer, play off the ball, blitz, kind of do whatever the defense calls for you to do. I think that's kind of where these guys come in. So the three guys I kind of have in this list are Jalen Walker from Georgia. He's a linebacker / edge player. Jihad Campbell from Alabama, who's the same. He played off-ball linebacker for the most part in college, but he was recruited originally to Alabama as a 5-star edge player. So he's got that, the burst and bend on the edge that I think is intriguing for a lot of teams, that maybe he could be a full-time edge player at the next level, but he also a really good linebacker. And then the third guy, who's, I think he's less of a tweener and more of just like a tweener size, Josiah Stewart from Michigan, who's 6'1", 250. That's not the type of player in terms of body type that you look at typically as an edge player. 6'1", a little bit too short, a little bit too compact, but man, he is just so explosive, so fast. And when he gets to pin his ears back and rush the passer, he gets home at an incredible rate. In fact, he had a 41% win rate on true pass rush sets last year, according to PFF, which was like third highest in college football. And he's like, it's almost like he's so small, he can run around and get past these big lumbering offensive tackles.
That's the beauty of being a tweener. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a Euro step move, which he uses both to the outside and to the inside. It's just he's just really fun to watch, and I think he's going to be kind of more of a sub package player. He might not be a full-time 3-down player, but all three of these guys really explosive, really good closing speed, and I just think with the way that defenses are going now, where you're bringing pressure from every different angle. You're not necessarily even blitzing on every play. You're just changing up the look so that the quarterback doesn't really know what you're looking at. I think these guys can be really useful in those schemes.
Let's talk sleepers in this NFL draft. There's a couple that you have. Let's start with R.J. Harvey, running back at UCF.
He's just really exciting. He's probably going to end up being a late day 2, and so like 3rd round, maybe 4th round type of pick. He's not as good in the passing game as some of the other guys in this draft, so I think he might fall just a little bit from that. But as a pure runner, he's one of the best in this class. I mean, if you look at the last 2 seasons, he's averaged 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns a year for UCF, plus another 500 yards and 4 touchdowns as a receiver. He's low to the ground, compact. He's really good at like pressing the line of scrimmage and then jump cutting away from the defense based on where they've kind of ended up going. He's explosive. He ran a 4.4 at the combine, 38-inch vert. So he's got that short area burst explosiveness. He's just a ball of energy. And I think he'd be a good complement to like a pass catching type of running back at the next level.
Yeah, I like that. Like a Sproles, you know what I mean? Sounds like a big spurt of energy there. And then we had a wide receiver from Stanford also on the board.
Yeah, Alec Iomanor from Stanford. He's a Canadian that he's
I
kind
love
of
him already.
Yeah, he's from Medicine Hat, Canada, Alberta, I think. And
that sounds like a children's book and not a place, but okay.
So he's big, physical, and explosive. He's a former high school track guy. In fact, he grew up in Canada, but came to the U.S. as a sophomore and played in Massachusetts high school. He was a big time track athlete. 100 and 200 meter. He like set league records in both of those events.
This guy would have played for Belichick at Carolina. This guy,
he is
the next time.
He's like, I kind of, when I watch him, I kind of picture like a Nico Collins type of player. Slant routes, vertical routes, go up and go over a guy on contested catch situations.
That Nico Collins slant was like the reason the Chargers got cut up to death. You know,
dude.
Like,
and he's really good at it because he uses his frame to kind of like shield the cornerback away. He doesn't let them undercut it. He has a really good feel for like almost like boxing out. He's a former hockey player, so he's got that physicality to him. Early declare he's only a redshirt sophomore, so I think he's just got a ton of potential. My guess he'll be like a third rounder, probably, maybe a second rounder, depending on how teams view him. But great athlete, big time playmaker in terms of like he can run after the catch, go up over a corner and win. And I think he's really flying under the radar right now.
Last thing before we let you go, quickly, just on the Seahawks, Pete Carroll era is over. He's starting a new era, obviously, with the Raiders. You get Sam Darnold, you get Cooper Kupp. It does feel very Seattle to me. Is this like a nice reset for the Seahawks fans?
I hope so. I mean, I think my general take on it is the Seahawks got rid of two of their best players in Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. They obviously got rid of a great coach in Pete Carroll. So there's a lot there. This is a huge gamble from the Seahawks organization, from John Schneider in particular, who, kind of, I don't know like exactly what happened, but he more or less won a power struggle, ended up staying the GM, got a new coach, got a new quarterback, got rid of DK Metcalf, the last remnants of the old Seahawks.
Two horses to pick, and they picked the Schneider horse, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the pressure's on for Schneider to produce a winner and to kind of get the team over the hump, because they've been like a competitive team, but not a great team over the last like 5 or 7 years. And so I think that there is some upside with the way that they've kind of done this. Sam Darnold's younger. He's arguably got more upside to be a true franchise quarterback. I think Geno Smith, he's more of a bridge quarterback. He's 30. Oh, he's going to be 35 this year. That's probably not happening in terms of a long-term solution at quarterback, whereas Sam Darnold could turn into that in theory. He could turn into something like a Baker Mayfield, hopefully, where, you have a career renaissance in a situation where you have a little more stability, things like that. But, going from DK Metcalf to Cooper Kupp, who really fell off at the end of last year, I think he's kind of a total unknown. He's a wild card. I think he helps them from the point of view where they literally didn't have anyone else as a number 2 receiver on their team after Jackson Smith and Jigba. So that certainly helps. But I think overall, this is a huge, huge gamble for the Seahawks. And they really, this is obvious to say, but they really have to hit with these draft picks that they've gotten from these trades. They have to make the next couple of drafts work, or else I think we'll look back on this as a failed experiment.
Yeah, Darnold and Kupp just seem like super chill guys, and that just feels like their vibe, and I hope that it works out for them, because Seattle will love them if they do win football games, and that's all it takes. DK, we appreciate you coming on the show. Where can we find all your amazing work, and then we'll let you go enjoy the rest of your day?
You can find my draft guide at theringer.com, nfldraft.theringer.com, and check out the Ringer NFL Draft Show on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
There you go. Danny Kelly, you're the best. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Another edition of Thru the Ringer. We appreciate you tuning into the show. Thanks to Cousin Sal for being such a trooper today. And thanks to Danny Kelly for getting us prepared for what is to come in the 2025 NFL Draft. Again, go check out the NFL Draft Guide on theringer.com. And thank you for watching the show. We will see you next week.